this week we are starting the animals Zentangle. So I'm just going to go through some of these examples here really quick. I talked about some of this earlier because we were doing some planning. But the idea here with this project is that it's a little bit different than the Zentangle we did in Intro to Art, in that I want this to be a little bit more planned out and I want it to be a little bit more polished. It's not just going to be randomly making patterns this time. So you might want to do a little bit more like brainstorming and planning on the side in terms of the Zentangle part of it. But like right away, we'll be able to trace our animal outline on, and then I'll show you some ways that you could maybe create like a practice sheet to work on with what's in your kit. Okay. Now, if you don't have your kits with you or you didn't pick it up yet, you want to pick it up as soon as you can. I would say today or tomorrow would be best. If you think you have the materials to do this at home without the kit, then definitely start it right away. Okay, because I mean, with drawing, it's simple drawing materials. So if you have, a decent sized piece of paper and you have a Sharpie or a thin ink pen at home, then you would be able to start this right away. Okay, even if you don't have your kit, but most of you did pick up your kit, which is great. So this Zentangle project is going to have a theme, and I would like you to choose an animal. Now, I've had people ask, like, can I do bugs or insects? Yes, I consider those animals. You could do imaginary or fantasy animals. So you could do like a dragon or a unicorn or something like that. The whole idea is I just want you to think animals are just like a nice starting point as to something that naturally has interesting design and texture within it. And then I want you to think of how you can invent Zentangle to kind of fill that space and make it look interesting. And the reason it's bigger is because these untangles will actually have like a white area around it. So my idea is that you're going to trace or draw your animal in the middle, fill it with a lot of really detailed, dense Zentangle, and then leave the outside white for contrast. So I have a ton of examples in here you can look at just to see. And if your animal like doesn't fill up the space well enough, you can add another smaller one in the page. So that's the reason I put that one on here. So in these instructions, this is just a reminder of how to do the ribbons if you want to do ribbons, but I'm not going to require any specific type of pattern for this project. The ribbons were just the starting point that I did in Intro to Art to get you guys into Zentangle as just something you can start with. Okay, but it's all about texture, pattern, line. So I've got this sheet on here. This is the same one we had from Intro to Art. But obviously, you're going to find a ton of designs if you go and look online. Okay. Another way to think of Zentangle is it might be overwhelming with that big white space in the middle of your animal to try to just fill that in right away. So you could try some of these techniques to make it, think of it as like broken glass or like a puzzle or something where you're drawing lines to just break it down into smaller shapes initially. And then within those smaller shapes, like you could go in here now and do a little pattern. You could go in here and do a pattern. You could go in here and do a pattern. So these are just some ideas of how you could maybe start to just break the image down a little bit and then go within those smaller shapes to make more. Because like I said, if it's just one big area, it's going to be a little bit tricky to figure out. This is just different line qualities and techniques you can think about. Okay, once again, more line types to think about. And then I just have a bunch more animal Zentangle examples on here. So like if you look carefully at this, right? Like it looks like super detailed, tons of texture and everything, but you can see how this is planned out. If you look carefully, they probably didn't start with the Zentangle right away. Look how there's like this big shape here indicating where the eye goes, and then it's broken down with another shape. Look out here. This is broken up. This is a big shape here. And you can see they drew like these little fur angles out here intentionally. So what I think they did, the person that made this, is they had the animal on there first, then they went and made the big shapes to break it down first, and then they decided to go inside of each shape and create a pattern. And because animals, or this image in particular, is symmetrical, I like how they balanced it by putting the same pattern on either side. This is where you can see it's planned out a little bit more. So just something to think about as you're going through. Okay, another good example here. This bird, I think, really clearly shows, like you can see these big curved lines here that they just went across and broke it up. And you can use the animal's natural body type to decide how to break these up. Like for here, it was pretty obvious to make a line here because you're separating like the stomach from the wing. And then they maybe sketched like some of the roundness of the wing here and broke it up that way. So think of your animal in terms of where would there naturally be lines. Those might be good places to make those breaking points to kind of break it up. And then it's about filling in with Zentangle. But I don't want you going in and like trying to make it look like fur or look like the real animal. I'd say use your animal's natural texture and design as a way to break down the shapes into smaller shapes. And then within those smaller shapes, you as an artist be creative and come up with interesting texture and design that you think is interesting for the animal. Okay. Once again, looking at this giraffe here, you can see really large areas of shape where it was maybe broken down first. And then within those large shapes are the smaller Zentangle designs. This one does have a little background work in it, which if you wanted to, like I'm not saying you can't put stuff in the background. And depending on your design, it might make sense to do a little Zentangle in the background. So the background is an option if you do want to add some in there. You just don't want to go crazy and like fill the whole thing up. I think part of what makes these look cool is you have that really interesting contrast of this very white background with this very intense Zentangle pattern on the animal. But for this to look good and finished, the animal has to be very saturated and very filled with Zentangle. Okay. So just some more, these are more like student examples. And then I've just got this slideshow here with some of my student examples. These are from last year. Um, So you can just see some different, and you can even experiment a little bit. So like this person, they wanted this side to be lighter. So I believe what they did was they Zentangled and then they did, I think, white color pencil over it to make one side duller than the other. They just wanted to add a little bit of flair in there. Okay. This one I think I showed you before, but has a lot of movement. Very, very cool. Very filled and saturated. The way the dandelion like kind of lives in this white space, like you wouldn't normally think this would have that much emphasis, but there's a ton of emphasis here even though there's a lot less line because it's so white out here and we have just this little bit of movement that there's actually quite a bit of emphasis here. Obviously, there's emphasis on the bird as well, but this one I thought was very successful. Okay, just some more ideas that you can try out, different patterns, designs. So these are just here for you to look at and you can kind of decide what you want to do. A lot of people do birds. Birds are, they have just with the feathers and everything, there's just a lot of possibility there. Okay, so that's basically it for that part. Let me hop back into here. Um, so in the instructions here, if you open this up, I have kind of step by step what to do. I also list the objective here, and there will be some focus elements and focus principles. What I'm going to do probably next week is I'm going to do my demo on like the Google form and elements and principles, just to remind you guys about how that all works. But you will have to do a writing at the end of this assignment. And this stuff up here will help you with that because there's going to be a part on the writing where you have to choose 3 elements to write about and 3 principles to write about. By looking at what I've selected as kind of the focus of the assignment, these are good ones that you could write about, but you could still choose whatever you want. Okay, so we'll talk more about the writing next week. All right, and then here I just have written step-by-step instructions as to what to do, but I'm going to kind of do video for the starting part here. Okay, so I'm going to jump to my camera here, and I just grabbed a print that wasn't picked up. I don't remember if Marcus is in this class or my 4th hour, but Marcus came to pick his up, and I gave him the wrong butterfly. I think, Marcus, this is your butterfly. Once again, I don't remember if you're in this class or next hour, but if you wanted to come back and grab this one, otherwise you could use the one I gave you if you don't mind. It's totally up to you. Okay, that's fine. So yeah, Marcus, I did find yours. I know it's kind of hectic that day looking through it. All right, so here's what you guys are gonna do. So if you have your stuff out, you can like do this actively with me, or if you just kind of want to watch and then do it when we go to work time, that's fine. But basically what you're gonna start with is your animal print. Now this is gonna be for people that have a print and want to trace. If you don't have one to trace or you're gonna draw it yourself, you're gonna kind of skip this step, but I still want you to just watch it. So what you're going to need is in your kit, you're going to have a graphite stick. Okay, yours is going to be smaller than mine. I only put like half or quarter size sticks in there, and they won't have the wrapping. But in your kit, it'll just be like a really big, thick piece of graphite. It won't have any wood around it or anything. It's literally like just pencil lead without the wood is what it is. And if you don't have this or can't find it, you could just use a regular pencil and do the same thing. But I recommend you use a softer pencil. So if you have a 4B or a 6B, that's what you'd want to use. The graphite sticks are all going to be like 4B or higher for softness, so they're all pretty soft. But the idea is you actually turn it over And you're just going to fill the back of this up with graphite. So the graphite stick just helps do it faster because it's really going to fill it up all the way. Now, I'm not going to sit here and fill up the whole thing. I'm just going to do a little bit of it. So just so that you guys can see, I'm going to maybe try to just get like this half of it, and then maybe I'll do the other half next hour. So I'll just try to do like half of this here. But basically what you're doing by rubbing the graphite on the back is you're going to turn your print into a carbon copy. Okay. All right, so let's pretend that you filled up the whole thing, right? Then what you would do is you're going to take your normal piece of paper. Okay, this is your 12 by 18 drawing paper. This is where your finished one is going to go. What I would do is I would put your print on it. And if you have a piece of tape at home, all I would do is just take and put like one piece of tape at the top, just like that. That's all you have to do. That's enough to hold it in place. And then like you can lift up and kind of look at it as you go through. So now what I'm going to do is you can just take a regular pencil. Doesn't even have to be sharpened because you're not actually doing it for the drawing. What you're doing is you're just putting pressure down. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to naturally just trace over my lines. And this is only going to work if the graphite's underneath. So I'm just going to start tracing. So I'll just do like a little bit of this just so you can get an idea. So let's go like this. And we'll get a little bit of this up here. And then what you could do is you shouldn't do too much on the inside, but like this butterfly has some really natural shapes that I could use to break it down. So maybe I do want to get some of those shapes in there for just lines to break it down, but I'm not actually doing Zentangle or anything yet. You're just giving yourself like a base structure. So maybe I like this shape here, and I like this shape here. Okay, maybe you want to do some of these circles and then you want to Zentangle in the circles. That could work. I can see some definite lines coming out here. And then I would trace, but you're pretty much just doing the outline and then just like a few details on the inside. Okay. All right, so I'll just do that much of it because I can't even. But now what's going to happen, you'll see when I flip this up, you'll see that my drawing now is underneath and it's really nice and clean. So if you do that correctly, you can see the graphite is underneath the print. You lay it on top, you just trace over. What you're going to get is you're going to get a really nice clean outline of the animal. And then once you have that on there, you would start doing your Zentangle with the pen. Now here's the thing though, I want this more planned out. So you might not jump in and Zentangle right away. This is what you have the newsprint in your kit for. So the newsprint is the really thin, like grayish paper that's in your, and you should have a lot of it. You should have some 9 by 12 and some 12 by 18, right? So what you could do is you could either take a small piece of newsprint like the 9 by 12 and you could just practice textures on there and figure out what you want to do. Or if you want to be really detailed, you could take the same print after you trace it on your main paper. You could just tape it to your newsprint, trace it on your newsprint, and then your newsprint, you could just practice on that with the animal outline on it. And then you can kind of go section by section. And once you decide what you like, then you can go in onto your final one with the ink pen and do it from there. Okay, and then that's basically it. You get it traced on, you brainstorm as you go, you plan, and you fill with Zentangle, and then basically you just go until it's done. Now, typically the most common criticism I'll have on Zentangles is that they're not detailed enough, or there are spots where there could be more design. So just keep in mind that because the whole outer area is going to be white, that I expect there to be a lot of detailed Zentangle work within. So think small lines, small textures, small patterns. Do not use a thick Sharpie. It should be a thin pen or a very like ultra fine Sharpie, very, very thin lines. And if you want an area dark, you fill in with very intricate textures and do many, many lines to make the areas darker. So it should take you a lot of time to do this. It's not something that should take you a day. I'm planning on a full like 1.5 to 2 weeks to work on this. So put that in your mind that that's how much time I really want put into this for the final. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close this out. I'm going to turn my recording off.